When you believe in things you don't understand, there is superstitious writing on the wall. Welcome to the show. License to Steal, another episode. We're trying to get Toby out of the funk that he's been in ever since he went to Yankee Stadium, witnessed a victory, and then unfortunately saw his Yankees blow a gasket last night. And I have a theory on that. First of all, how are you, Toby? You okay? How was your trip to New York?
Well, that kind of made my spirits a little bit better, so I appreciate that, Defo. But I'm doing all right. Like we kind of just said before we started up the show, it's just part of being a fan. But still great to go to New York and see the guys compete and see them fight for a World Series title. Hopefully, we can do it again soon and not 15 years from now.
Been on several shows today, had different guests talking about it. We actually talked to Bucky fucking Dent on a show earlier this morning, and he had an extremely rational explanation as to what was wrong with the New York Yankees in the World Series and why they ended up on the losing end. And it had nothing to do with any of this. And I've been on a couple of shows. I was listening to analysis. You know how you're waiting in the background there, and the guy finally clicks you on. But you heard his theory about what happened there. Well, the fundamentals were bad, and Aaron Boone's got to go, and this and that. And you could talk about how Aaron Boone gave away game number one in the series. You could make a very valid case for that. Cortez, who'd been on ice, I think he was with those guys in the Andes Mountain that were eating each other's flesh in the movie Alive.
You might
That's how
man.
cold he was. He was on ice, this guy, forever. You bring him in, of course, to groove on to Freddie Freeman, who just happens to be on fire. You could look at that. You could look at this inning that it reminded me, Toby, you would see like in one of the early prelim games before they even get to Williamsport. And you hear the guy on ESPN going, well, this San Bernardino team, I tell you what, they really try hard. But it did look like something that was maybe in advance of the Little League World Series, that kind of inning with a drop line
Hmm.
drive in center field, a soft liner, the bad throw to third base. And then, Toby, you watch spring training. Well, what do you see? You see the shot there, and you're wondering, are these guys even working out? The pitcher, they hit a little roller to first base, and the pitcher's on the mound, and he makes a move, and then he runs over there and covers the bag. And that's it. That's your essential baseball drill. They start doing this before the season even begins. So how the fuck do you forget about it when you're in the middle of the World Series and you just gave yourself an opportunity to bail out of a jam without coughing up the lead? And I thought it was Hideki Irabu when he fell off the mound there to the right side, and he just I've fallen and I can't get up, but nowhere to be seen. The Garrett Cole, who was pitching an excellent ball game up until that point. Now the frustration was mounting, and if you just looked in his eyes, you were thinking this guy is psychotic. He was definitely in some kind of bizarre zone, but lost it there. And all of these fundamental mistakes, you could point to them and say, okay, Boone's got to go, and a lot of changes need to be made. And if you don't re-sign Soto, you're fucked next year, no matter what you do. And hopefully, Aaron Judge, one of these days, will break out of his postseason slumps and actually do something and have an impact, a positive impact for the Yankees. All that being said, the series was lost, my friend, long before it. Well, not long before, but a couple of days before it started. And we talked about this, and I was ridiculed by
We did.
people that I have great respect for laughed in my face. I offered the theory up, and you know how you do this on a show, and they think you're just kidding around, and so they give you that look. I was dead serious. The Fernando factor was overwhelming in this series. You cannot just
Hmm.
overlook Fernando Valenzuela checking out. I mean, is this coincidence? No, it's a sign from the gods of gambling that you better jump on the Dodgers right now, no matter what the price, and empty out every dime that you can get your hands on, because that was going to be a matter of the occult. That was just too much. It was too overwhelming to overcome. Did you give it any more credibility? I think you might have shrugged this off and thought, why am I on this guy's show? Well, when I offered it up last week, and all of the handicappers that we have on, whenever I brought attention to the idea that, don't you think there's something to Fernando checking out? They all looked at me and go, well, I'm a numbers guy. I don't believe in that kind of shit, DeForest. But what do you think now, Toby? Is it time to maybe amend your opinion and take a look at some things that are perhaps very intangible and very much outside of our control?
Well, I remember hearing you talk about that on the show last week, and I actually agreed with you. I feel like for at the end of the show, we were talking about that for a little bit because like he was on that 1981 team that beat the Yankees, I believe, too, the last time that they
Yes,
played. So
that was the
it
year of
just felt
Fernando
like too
Mania.
much of a coincidence. Yeah, just felt like too much of a coincidence. It was definitely one of those things that is kind of just bigger than baseball. I felt like they didn't handle the pregame Fernando tribute very well in LA, and I thought for that they were going to win for him to kind of make up for that too. So I think it just led up to just the perfect storm.
If you are wagering on the series, you have to take some of these factors into account. I believe you do. No matter how sharp of a handicapper you are, you have to consider at times matters of the occult. And I thought that was just a huge, huge omen to see. Unexpected. It wasn't like, you found out that Koufax died at 86 or something. This was Fernando fucking Valenzuela. 63
Hmm.
years old. There was no mention of any kind of illness that he had suffered. It wasn't like he had a sudden massive heart attack. He just mysteriously checks out right before the series. And you had to think that maybe he and Tommy Lasorda were pulling the strings together there, up there in the great casino in the sky. All right, we're going to get into some handicap and a lot of stuff to discuss. Toby, I'm sure you'll be all over the football activity. We're going to get a variety of opinions on that. We're going to start it out with one of our favorites here on the show. And the guy that I think knows as much or more about college football as anybody. I mean, Beano Cook would not have had a career if you were around at the time. And Hank would have never had him on any of his shows. Hank Goldberg, the
Yeah,
great late
we
Hank Goldberg.
both had a face for radio. That's for sure.
But yeah, it's great to have you on, Professor. How are you feeling? And you've made a nice bounce back from that little slump
Yeah,
that
it
you
wasn't that
experienced.
great. It was 2-2. I feel good. The World Series is over, as you discussed. Did our guy cash that big parlay?
$90,000. I'm not
Nice.
sure how much he hedged. He was considering some kind of hedge off.
I would have gone a full hedge myself, but good for him.
Yeah, he would have had to hedge, I believe, 40,000 to get back 45. I think you had plus 110 or something like that on the Yankees.
Now, I will tell you, I agree with your occult theory,
Yeah.
but I thought what it was going to be was the Yankees were coming back, make it 3-3, and then the Dodgers would win Game 7, which would have taken place on the Day of the Dead for Mexico.
That
And
would
I
have
thought
tied in
that would have been
perfectly.
a perfect finish with Fernando checking out before the World Series.
Yeah, nobody was buying it before the series, but I think people have to take it into consideration now. Before we get going on the college football slate and some of the things that you're looking at this week, Professor, I did want to touch on something, an hysterical piece that you did on one of our other shows. It's called The Big Board with the Professor. And you were alluding to celebrity endorsements that weren't necessarily considered flattering. And
Yes.
the best one, I don't think it was the top one on the list even, but the best one was Vontez Burfict and Antonio Brown endorsing, what was it, a Trump endorsement?
No, it was Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown endorsing Donald Trump in Pennsylvania a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago. And my question was, would we all be a little bit better off if we had let Vontez Burfict just finish Antonio Brown off on the field like 7 years? Like, I mean,
Possibly so, yeah.
is the world a better place with Antonio Brown? I mean, number one, if you followed the career of Vontez Burfict in the NFL, maybe if he had actually killed Antonio Brown on the field instead of just giving him permanent brain damage, then like his bloodlust would have finally been slaked, and he wouldn't have gone on to injure like the 8 other guys he injured. Because again, Vontez Burfict, our theory was that he always had a sock puppet to talk to him in his head. Basically, kill him, kill him, kill him. Like maybe if he had finished Antonio, and secondly, would the world really be better off? I mean, be any worse off if Antonio Brown had checked out on the field? He would have gone out a hero instead of living to see himself become the villain. But I think we actually got a better one, maybe the top one, last night in Green Bay, Wisconsin, as Brett Favre came
Yes.
to endorse Trump and was very offended by the whole we are Biden saying Trump supporters are garbage people or whatever it was. I didn't watch the clip.
The idea of Biden
Really
misspeaking. Yeah, no,
offended Brett Favre. And Brett Favre wanted to take a moment to say, we assure you, because he didn't say you or he said we are not garbage people. Really, Brett Favre, are you sure you're not a garbage person? Because I think, if you still steal welfare money to build your daughter a volleyball court, that kind of qualifies you as a garbage person. Not to mention, the various sexual harassments and other. I mean, I think pretty much the whole theme of your last 5 or 6 years in the NFL up through today is Brett Favre is a garbage person.
Yeah, it seems to be lacking in credibility there. If you're going to
And I
go
don't
ahead and
mean, by the way,
vouch
a
for somebody.
sanitation worker because we drove in on the. I mean, an actual human pile of garbage. I mean, again, robbing welfare money seems about as garbage person to move as I can possibly imagine. But
Yep, right up there with
that's
our
just
man Rick
me.
Scott.
I'm not saying that of everybody in the coalition or anything like that. Vote how you're going to vote. All I want this is to be over at this point. But like on the Brett Favre specifically issue, I feel like we gotta call a little bullshit there. That you're kind of a garbage person, Brett.
That might have been the chart topper, though, if it had
Yes,
occurred prior to last
Brett
week.
Favre is offended by being called garbage. Like
It's
you worked,
classic.
you worked hard for the title. Why are you denying it?
All right, we have the professor here. Good slate, I think, of college football. You have the marquee game between Ohio State and Penn State. I don't know if you want to take a look at that as an
I
official
mean, we
pick.
can talk about it, but it is not a play for me.
Okay, what do you think? Ohio State and Penn State, because I believe it will be one of the plays for Scotty M on the show today.
I mean, it's an interesting game. Here's my thing: if you're Ohio State, let's say you go in and beat there, are people going to start taking you super seriously again after you went out and lost to Oregon and then really struggled with Nebraska last week? I don't know that, I don't know that this is much of a win scenario for Ohio State in terms of perception. I think if they go in and win, the perception is going to be, oh, James Franklin still sucks against, highly ranked teams. I'm looking for a defensive game. The Ohio State offense has not particularly impressed me the last couple of weeks under Will Howard, particularly in the passing game. Penn State's got a quality defense. Unfortunately, going back to that USC game and really the Illinois game before that, what we're seeing is that Drew Aller is just not very good quarterback. He's Christian Hackenberg part two, a very highly rated guy who's supposed to transform the Penn State offense and doesn't seem to be able to do that. I saw the number, I think at 5 the other day. It's down to 3. I would start leaning closer to Ohio State if it dips beneath 3. I guess under would also be in play here at 45.5. Both defenses very live in this one. I'm not sure that either passing attack will do a whole lot in this matchup, but I don't feel like I got a good read on it line-wise. My natural inclination would probably be towards the under.
Okay, looking at possibly a little taste on the under, Ohio State, Penn State, the marquee game. What are you looking at this week to make a score with, Professor?
All right, we're going to start because the one thing we've had consistent success on is Friday nights. We're going to start, and we're going to start with a matchup down here that is the Bulls USF coming into FAU. Two teams, I would say, having a somewhat disappointing season, although with USF that's more of a function of schedule than it really is the results necessarily. Took a loss to Alabama, took a loss to Miami, two teams obviously ranked in the top 5 when they played them. Tulane looks like one of the stronger teams in the AAC in the smaller conferences, and then Memphis, another one sort of loosely in playoff contention there. So I think their disappointing results are the function of schedule. I think when you look at FAU, and I think a lot of people were surprised by this because a lot of people thought Tom Herman would start to turn things around this year. Just not looking impressive on either side of the ball. Really, you look at the last 4 games, it's really the defense that has let him down. 48 to Connecticut, 38 to a bad UTSA team, 41 to North Texas. Their defense has been really disappointing to this point in this season. The offense has been okay, but nothing's fantastic. The key here with this game is it looks like USF's going to get their quarterback back. Coming in as a 2.5-point favorite on the road. Again, two somewhat disappointing teams, but I think USF has shown more this season. So we'll take the Bulls minus 2.5. This is one I would go get right now because I think when you see Brown warming up tomorrow to play quarterback, this number will probably go above 3. So USF at 2.5 right now.
All right, and FAU has been horrible of late, just getting blasted off the field.
USF's results aren't that good, but they played a much higher quality opponent than FAU has to this.
They hung tough in that first half against the University of Miami. That could have been
hung tough into the 4th against Alabama. Yeah. I think if you look at their schedule, the one that was really disappointing is they did not really compete against Memphis a couple of weeks ago. But Memphis is a really good football team. So Again, I don't view that as that big a deal as much as a function of a high quality opponent.
All right, the Friday Night Light special from the professor has been very, very successful so far this year on these shows, and he likes USF laying a lousy 2 and a hook against an FAU team that is staggering right now. And we feel for Tom Herman, a great guy, and you were hoping for success here, and maybe you thought it might be a Lane Kiffin type of situation where he's here a year or two and then ends up getting another major job. But so far the results have been dead flat, and I don't know that he turns it around this week either. All right, so Professor, that's number one. USF minus 2.5 over FAU. What else do you have on the ledger?
A couple of noontime kickoffs. One in the SEC, I guess, would be as close to a feature as we're looking at here, and that's Ole Miss going on the road to Arkansas, laying 8. We like the Razorbacks. We've cashed on them a couple times early in the year. With looking to cash again. I think they're a somewhat underrated team here, particularly at home. Getting 8 points from an Ole Miss team who you could tell from their own coach is already looking ahead to Georgia in 2 weeks. Lane Kiffin, who spent the entire week whining because he was given an afternoon kickoff for his Georgia game in 2 weeks. He wanted that prime time game. You got to go into Fayetteville and beat Arkansas first before anybody cares about that game. I don't know. I'm not calling it on the money line, so I'm not saying necessarily that Arkansas is going to win the game, but I think +8, they look to be in a very good spot at home here. Arkansas brings in a defense that should give Ole Miss problems. Their offense has sort of sputtered as we got thick into the SEC schedule. I look for that to continue. They don't have a whole lot of consistent running game. They do create the occasional big play in the running game, but in terms of keeping ahead of the chains, they're not good at it. And they've given up more quarterback pressures than you would have thought coming into the season. It's been a consistent problem with them. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble, much like Tennessee did when they went ahead, sort of in a look ahead spot against Arkansas. I look for that to repeat. Razorbacks +8, and don't be shocked if they get the win here. I'm not calling for it, but don't be shocked if Arkansas, very tough football team, gets a win in this spot.
Great expectations early on for Ole Miss. They weren't playing anybody. They were hammering their competition. And then stepped up in company and haven't necessarily measured up. So taking the 8 points with Arkansas against Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. So what else do you have?
Another noontime kick, much like a couple weeks ago, we whiffed on Indiana and came back last week on Casham. We're looking to do the same thing with Illinois. I think people overreacted to them going out to Oregon and get thumped. And I'll freely admit their offense did not look good. Oregon looked great in that spot, but it was on the road in a cross-country game, and I'd look for Illinois to bounce back here. Getting 3 at home for Minnesota, which is a number I just do not understand. I do know that the Badgers, not the Badgers, the Gophers have been on a little bit of a hot streak here. I believe they've won 3 in a row coming into this spot. But again, you look at the competition. The win over USC was nice, although, again, the more we see of USC, I think the less we're impressed with that. Honestly, beating UCLA 21-17 does not impress me at all. UCLA's rotten. And then beat Maryland last week. Well, at the beginning of the season, people thought a little something of Maryland. I don't think anybody really thinks that much of it anymore. I have no idea why Minnesota would be laying points in this spot. Yes, Illinois lost their running back a couple of weeks ago, but they ran the ball pretty effectively against Oregon. It was really their passing game that failed them. I don't think that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. Oregon +3. This one, I do think the Illini will end up getting the win at home. I mean, if you watch that game last week against Oregon, sort of like everything spiraled on them in the first half. That happens sometimes. You just catch the wrong side of an avalanche. I don't think it'll happen 2 weeks in a row. I still like BLM as a coach, and I think they bounce back probably with a straight-up win, getting 3 at home against Minnesota this week.
All right, so we got a 3-bagger so far from the professor. USF -2.5 over FAU. Minnesota, Illinois +3 with Minnesota, and Arky +8 with Ole Miss. Anything else?
Yep. Our last game, and it does involve another Florida team, but it's not the cocktail party. This is trying to make up a mistake last week. We noticed that BYU line. I think most of the country noticed that BYU line against UCF and kind of scratch our head. I don't know exactly why I passed on it. Just a mistake. Honestly, the game looked so trappy with the number that I just stayed away because I tend to, much like the Houston Jets game tonight, where everybody in the world has asked me why this line is where it is, and seem to be wanting to bet on the Texans. I sort of looked at the BYU game with that level of suspicion last week. So what happens? BYU goes in and kicks UCF's ass. UCF, who's now going to start their fourth quarterback of the season, if word is correct, going to start a true freshman quarterback, is laying 6 to Arizona. This is two teams. They are certainly not where they want to be in the season. Both teams actually came in with a little expectation coming into the year. Arizona, both sitting at 3-5, both coming off disappointing losses. I think Arizona throws the football better, a lot better than most UCF opponents, and UCF's only 215th in the country against the pass. So I think this will be another long day for the Knights. Give me the Wildcats plus the 6 here as Fafita and McMillan finally have their bounce back game through the air as 6-point dogs.
All right, we have a quartet of games here from the professor. Any thought on Miami laying nearly 3 touchdowns against Manny Diaz and Duke?
Not a play. I mean, honestly, given the way the season has gone, why would you lay 3 touchdowns with Miami against anybody at this? But they seem to have a natural habit of playing get closer than they should be games. Would they like to rub Manny Diaz's nose in it? Probably. Does Manny Diaz do some things defensively that makes that a possibility? Sure. I mean, he's still Manny Diaz. He likes to blitz too much. He likes to leave his guys out on islands too much. Could that lead to a game where the Canes hit a bunch of big plays in the past game? It could, but I certainly wouldn't bet on it. On the other hand, I wouldn't be inclined to bet against Cam Ward, who came off a winning, blowout win against Florida State and got nothing but criticism for it because, the numbers weren't flashy. If he comes back and tries to put up big numbers in that situation, wouldn't shock me. And certainly Miami, the coaching staff and the program would like to see his Heisman campaign. So I think that's a bit of a coin flip to me. I wouldn't want anything to do with it.
I always factor in another 7 points in the negative direction on the Cristobal factor, thinking that if Mario's the game day coach, give the other team another 7 points automatically. So
I don't know.
that makes
do that when Manny Diaz is the other side of it, to be honest. I mean, Manny's done some really good things over the years, but Manny's been on the end of some really funky blowouts over the years. Yeah.
All right. Professor, we can't thank you enough. Always a pleasure. Good luck with all of your plays and all of the bets that you make over the weekend. And we'll talk to you again next week on the show. Thanks for being with us. The Professor, ladies and gentlemen. All right. With that, we're going to bring in Scotty M. And Scotty M. Been riding a nice winning streak on all of the programs that we've been doing. Scotty, how are you, my friend?
What's going on, Defo? How you doing on this lovely Halloween Thursday?
I'm doing all right. I would imagine, though, that Yankee fans felt very much like going out and disguising themselves as Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now, so they could just go and knock on doors and go, the horror, the horror. I don't know which side of that you were on. I would imagine.
Defo, here's my ticket.
Oh, that's right. You had the Yankees in the series because of all of the guys that work in your office.
Now, here's my quote of the day, and you'll appreciate this from Paul Simon himself. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? Turns its lonely eyes to you. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, no, it was some serious ugliness there. We were talking earlier on the show with Toby, the producer of this fine program, and we were saying it really looked like one of those preliminary games that you see leading up like a regional for the Little League World Series. Not even Williamsport, but you know where you have Rancho Cucamonga hung tough today, and you're like, what the fuck you talking about? I mean, they dropped 3 balls that anybody could have picked up. You could have had like the Century Village team out there; they would have made those plays. But very unfortunate, and sorry for the guys in the office. I hope they showed up for work today. The people that you're working with.
Well, I gave them a day off today to recoup, so they'll be back hopefully at it tomorrow. But yeah, I haven't heard from them. So it's probably like, a little vigil they're sitting right now.
It was one of my probably my first degenerate experience. I was a 9-year-old divorced. There was a kid in the neighborhood named Richie D'Angelo, and he just liked to fuck with people. So everybody, of course, at that time, 1960, were all Yankee fans, diehard Yankee fans. We're living in Brooklyn. So Richie talks me into going partners with him in booking all of the action against the Yankees in the 1960 World Series. So you remember how that went. It was 3-3, but Pittsburgh was winning 2-1. Yankees were winning 15-2. Pittsburgh would win 1-0. Yankees would win 16-3. looked like it had Blowout City written all over it. They get to Game 7, and of course, the Yankees are up. And, it looks like we're going to have to head out of town. It was a loser leaves town situation. I didn't have enough money to pay these guys off. We're booking bets, so and this was back in the day when a dollar was a buck, and so we would have owed them the equivalent of about $1,500 by today's standards. I'm 9 years old. Where am I going to get that from? And sure enough, I'm halfway to Queens when Mazeroski hits the home run. And all of a sudden, we come back, and we're the richest kids in the neighborhood because everybody had to give us their buck. So it was great. So, I know what it's like, the futility of a Yankee fan. I profited from it as a young kid. And unfortunately, a lot of Yankee money went up in smoke. All right, let's get to some plays. Scotty Mac, and I mean Scotty M. I keep calling you Scotty Mac because I had a producer named Scotty Mac.
Don't worry about
Scotty Matthews, and goes by Scotty M. And we'll tell you where you can find his info in a sec. But you're going to go to the colleges first, and
Yes,
you're going against me on this one. Although I think it was the most embarrassing. There's still a stench hovering over the site from which I broadcast after I gave out Syracuse last week. In that game against Pittsburgh, and it turned into an annihilation. I'm watching 2 pick sixes go back in the first quarter. But you're thinking that was more an indication of how the team is going to play again, because I know you're looking at Virginia Tech in this spot.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I think Syracuse definitely played over their head their first 6 games, going 5-1. They finally ran into a buzzsaw with Pittsburgh, who's undefeated. Amazing season they're having so far. But I just like the way Virginia Tech right now is playing on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. They've turned it up a notch. And I think a team that's turning it up a notch against a team that just came off that type of brutal beatdown, 3 pick sixes, very rare, and 2 in the first quarter, just turned that whole game around. I could call it a mulligan, I guess, if you want to, for Syracuse. But I think Virginia Tech is the stronger team of these 2 teams. I think they're more well-balanced. I like the way they're doing their offense. I like the way they're playing on defense. It's a respectable number. They're giving them a 4-point edge going into Syracuse, which Syracuse has the better record, and, in that conference. So, the bottom line is here, I like Virginia Tech. I like this line bringing it down to 3 from 4. I think they're going to handle this game. I just see them playing. They're going on that level where I always look for a team that's, starting to climb, or another team might start flatlining. Syracuse, I like to see how they play the next 2 to 3 weeks. But I do like Tech in this game. I think they're going to win by no less than 7 to 14 points. And I wouldn't mind laying I bring it down to -3. I'm a big component of buying numbers on certain numbers. I bring that game down to -3 just because of the road factor. But I do think they're the strong.
All right, kind of lost Scotty M there for a second. Hopefully we'll get him back. He was in the middle of a roll here. There you are.
And that's it. I like Virginia Tech in this matchup, -3. Strong play.
All right, very good. I tore up my check after last week's prediction on Syracuse versus Pitt, and we were getting 5.5 in that game. I tore up my check to the Alumni Association, and that will not be in the mail, I can assure you. Let Costas pay for that loss instead of me. All right, you're also looking at USC and Washington this week.
Yeah, this is a game I think is very interesting, and I'm starting to see it going in my direction a little bit, which I thought it would, because I didn't think the line was correct to begin with. You got a team in USC. I mean, they get respect. They got a great coach, obviously, head coach. So he gets, Lincoln Riley gets a lot of respect. Washington, went to the championship game last year, loses their coach, goes to Alabama. To make a long story short, these teams are both 4-4, equal numbers. But USC has not won a road game this year. They're 0 for the road. And being the fact that Washington just came off 2 tough opponents on the road with Iowa and Indiana, which is a buzzsaw. That's the team I've been jumping on, doing real well all year. But I love the dog in this game. It's dropping down a little bit, but I take Washington at home as a live dog. I think that this game is a mistake. I think they're starting to see that, and the line's creeping down. It was like 3 the other day. Now it's down to 2 in some spots. But I would buy this line up to +3 with Washington as a live dog. I mean, they're 4-1 at home. They're a whole different team at home. They show up. They beat some good teams at home. And I just don't like USC on the way they're playing on the road. And I just think this is a bad number on this game. I like the dog big time with Washington.
All right, taking the points at home, a home dog, Washington, +2 and a hook was the last line I saw on that. You are going to get into the marquee game here, Ohio State and Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I like this game. I mean, obviously, Ohio State would have been the number one team in the country if he would have slid down with 1 second left. They probably would have had a 30-yard field goal to win that game against Oregon. They would have been number one in the nation going into this game. Penn State's playing phenomenal. This is number 3 against number 4 in the country. Big Ten, 100,000 plus. This, Happy Valley. It doesn't get any better than this matchup, obviously, at this time of the year. I still think Penn State's got to, I'm not putting this out by any stretch as a big play, but it's just a strong opinion. I like the dog in this game. I just think Penn State is just playing right now, all straight ahead. And, Ohio State's a powerhouse, don't get me wrong. They have a backup quarterback, obviously, with Penn State in this game. But he played last week, and he played extremely well. And as long as he doesn't make crazy mistakes and start forcing things and turnovers, because if you turn the ball over to Ohio State, you're a dead man. You're not going to have a shot in this game. But I think Penn State, if they play, error-free and they stay in the game right, their defense can carry them. And I like them as a live dog. Plus 3.5. I would get this line to 3.5 on this game. Again, I'm looking for numbers. I'm looking for a bigger edge than everyone else looks for. So I like this game at plus 3.5 with the dog. Again, this is not a huge play, just a solid opinion play. But I
All right. Have a little interest in that game also. Never hurts for the overall enjoyment and the entertainment quotient. So got Virginia Tech. We have Washington. We have taste on Penn State. Moving to the pros, you're looking to ride the back of a couple of hot teams, Scotty M., and starting out with the Eagles in Jacksonville.
Well, that's my philosophy with these games to begin with, because I don't want to chase after a bad team. I don't want to chase a team and say, oh, they're due to win. I have that argument with my son all the time. It's funny because he's always looking to look at these teams. Dad, what do you think of this team? You think they're going to win this week? I said, listen, why chase after bad teams? If you're going to put your money, look for teams that have momentum. Look for teams that are playing good on both sides of the ball, playing good against the number. In certain spots, obviously, I'm not saying every good team that's playing well is going to win every week, because that would be, the case. Everyone would be a billionaire. We could just do that every week on every game.
Look at the Ravens last week. Yeah, win
Yes.
5 in a row, and then next thing you know, they lose to the Browns with Jameis Winston out there.
Exactly. But this game I really love, because I just think they're playing on that cusp right now, are starting to really turn it on a little bit. I love the Eagles at home against Jacksonville. The line opened 6.5. It's gone up to 7.5. I'm going back to 6.5 on this. I would keep it under a touchdown. Eagles won 3 in a row since their bye. Different team right now. I guess the coach and the players are getting it back together again. It seems like there's a lot of good things, good energy going on there right now. Jalen Hurts seems to be responding well. The defense is showing up. I mean, Jacksonville's run into a buzzsaw. They haven't won a road game all year, 0-4 on the road. You're going into a place like this with a team that's going like this. I just think it's a perfect solution for a blowout. I think Philly wins this game by probably 12 to 18 points. So I'm jumping on Philly. I bring that line, again, when I give out a play, I'm bringing the number to 6.5. I'm not leaving it on a 7.5. Like Philly big time in this game.
All right, and finally, wrapping up in the NFL, you're also going to ride the win there with the Detroit Lions, who appear to be an offensive juggernaut, and they go against the Packer team that has been effective, but hasn't been as impressive as we've seen Detroit of late.
Well, this is an excellent game. I mean, this is what this conference is all about, and these are the two dominating teams, most likely. It looked like it was going to be Minnesota, but they might start coming back to the pack a little bit in the middle, with a couple of losses in a row. But this Detroit team is high octane all the way, 93 octane. This is a team right now that's just doing it both sides of the ball, putting up 50. So when you're putting up 50 and high 40s, you know what that means? You're causing turnovers because you're getting more possessions. You're making your other team make mistakes. You're capitalizing. Your offense is on target as well. So I just think right now, 5 in a row for Detroit. Yeah, Green Bay. I love Jordan Love. There's no doubt about it. The guy, I think, is dynamite. He's definitely, excellent quarterback. But I just think it's just too much buzzsaw right now with this Detroit team. They're making them a 3.5-point favorite in a tough environment. Under normal circumstances, even when Aaron Rodgers is there, Green Bay was always a favorite going against Detroit, no matter how good Detroit was. This Detroit team's getting a lot of respect right now. 3.5 is a strong number. But I'm bringing this game down. Here's another scenario. No 3.5 for Scotty M on this one. -2.5. Love Detroit. I think they're just going to keep rolling. I think they got too much firepower. I think they're going to cause Love to make mistakes somehow. And when he makes them, he does make them. And so far, Goff has not been making those mistakes. He's been on the point. Their offense is really, really strong, and they got a lot of weapons. And that defense is playing well, too. So I'm jumping all over Detroit in this game, -2.5. Love it.
They gave a little cause for alarm earlier in the season. They appear to have found their synchronization there in their stride and look a lot like the team that just rolled its way through the tail end of the regular season last year and into an NFC title game. Scotty, how can people find you if they want to get more of your information, get more of your plays, and follow your advice and your guidance?
No problem. There's two ways you guys can find me. Number one is on social media. We got a nice size following there. On TikTok, my official page, SM Picks, Picks. You can check it out. We put free stuff up all the time, hitting about 60% over 5 years being on social media. That's pretty damn good because these games we put up, we post them about 24 to 48 hours in advance. So we don't have the time because we want to keep them up there so guys can have the chance to see our opinions, so we put them up early. So that's the official page for me on TikTok. And also come to my website. We have different programs, different packages. If you want to discuss things with me, reach out. SMPicks, Picks.com, my official website. And we do have small packages for players to check us out and see what we're all about.
All right, been doing it a long time. A 5-bagger from Scotty M on the show. Good luck, my friend, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Have a great one.
All right, Scotty M, ladies and gentlemen. Rolling with Virginia Tech over my Syracuse Orange. Says Washington is going to beat USC, maybe even on the money line, but getting points at home. Likes Penn State a little bit over Ohio State. Eagles to crush Jacksonville, and the Detroit Lions to continue pounding their opposition and beat the Green Bay Packers. All right, we bring in Mike Jones, one of our favorite people here on the program. He is Mr. Baseball. He has seams on his head. It's fantastic. And I know you were enthralled and immersed in the World Series, maybe a little disappointed like I was. You sent me the text when the Yankees were up 5-0. How many games do you think this is going to go? I fired right back confidently. This one's going 7. It's never happened before. And what was weird about the World Series, I didn't realize this. That I know no team has come back in the World Series from 3-0 down. That's been out there for a long, long time. Of course, the Red Sox beat the Yankees in the championship series that one year, coming back from 3-0. You see it sometimes in the NHL, once in a blue moon. I don't know. I guess has it been done in a postseason in the NBA? No. I don't think so. But World Series, no team has ever done it. No team has ever forced a Game 6. And there were 25 examples of it. 25 times a team has gone down 3-0 in World Series play. No team's got no Game 6. I thought, sure. I mean, they were taking batting practice against Flaherty last night. It was unbelievable. It really did. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that. Was like the clubbing of seals. It really was almost unmerciful what was going on. But they left a lot on the plate. There were a lot of runners left on base. You had a couple of situations, bases loaded, 1 out. They don't get any more runs. Up 5-0. A little bit of a luxury, but not necessarily enough in the game of baseball against that Dodger lineup with the Yankees behind Cole, somewhat suspect pitching staff. So what did you think? I mean, I was with you. I thought that game was somewhat iced, and then just a horrible series of plays that you wouldn't find, as we've been talking about, even in the Little League World Series at Williamsport, committed by the New York Yankees, including the ultimate error, a mental error, which Garrett Cole committed himself.
Yeah, incredible 5th inning. I mean, you're sitting there looking at a 5-0 lead. Judge looks at a line drive that 99 out of 100 he's got to catch. This is the one time. He takes his eyes off and looks to double up a guy on first, and I'm saying to myself, catch the ball. All you need is outs. It's not like it's a 1-0 game at this point. You're up 5-0. And then you get the first and second, and then the play at third, and, he gets a bad grip on the ball. It would have been a close play, and like we talked about, he probably couldn't have taken it to second. Was he in the right position deep? Does he charge it a little bit more to make a play at second? Nope. Takes the real play, goes to third, bounces it over there to Chisholm, and, now your bases loaded. Then at a 5-1 game with 2 outs, and Cole just doesn't. And I think it all starts from the 2 errors. Cole then loses concentration. You have to talk to him. It just changes the mindset of the pitcher in that situation when he doesn't feel comfortable with his defense. And I think it all reacted and got into a tied game in the 5th. It was just unfortunate. I mean, and I was laughing because you did text me 7 games. It was for sure Game 6. I would have lost a lot of money thinking it was at least going 6. that stat is just remarkable. 25 games,
I couldn't believe that.
and none of them have gone to a game 5. Game
Well,
6.
they had only 4 times it's gone to
Yeah.
a game 5. So you had
Yes.
21 situations where
Yeah.
the team that was down 3-0 just got swept, rolled
Yeah.
right out of the World Series. So
Yeah.
it happened again last night.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to talk about a couple of things because, and we didn't touch on this yet, the wild finishes last week in the National Football League where you have lead changes take place within the final minute of the game.
Yeah.
And more than one of them. I mean,
Yeah.
the Bears end up taking the lead. Looks like they iced it. They get the 2-point conversion to make it even more of a higher degree of difficulty for Washington to come back and even send the game to OT. You thought that would be quite an accomplishment. In a million years, I actually turned the game off and went out and did something else. And I thought, well, wow, Chicago, nice comeback because they were dead in the water. There was, so flat in this game, flatter than the proverbial Parisian runway model. And they got nothing going, and they come back. They get the lead. Looks like they have it iced. And an atrocity. But you were all over this guy, Tyreek Stevenson, for
Yeah.
a play that you should never. I mean, if Chuck Bednarik is on that team, he just knocks this guy out, right?
It would have been bad if
Imagine Nitschke putting up with something like that.
Yeah,
They would have killed
no.
him right on the field.
And my guy Lawrence Taylor wouldn't have tolerated it either. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at that situation, and unfortunately, we don't see the video. The video comes out. I mean, you're being recorded. So here he is, running down the field, waving his arms, looking in the stands. I thought he was probably taunting Washington fans. It turns out his direction was waving at the Bears fans that were in there thinking they won too. And then here goes the play, and they're 40, 50 yards down the field. And he finally realizes, oh, we're playing.
Yeah.
And then, as a couple of guys have described this, football people, saying because he was so out of position, it gave him the ability to run into the play with momentum and get a running leap at the ball, which gave him the chance to tip it right to the guy he was supposed to be guarding, according to the people who are explaining defense to us. So it's just, and yes, the apologies, and yes, I'll never do it again. But these games are polarizing now. A loss like this could have cost Chicago a playoff spot. I just, when I see these things all the time, like, and using the Richardson tap out, like he says he wants to come out of a game. When you're gambling, you just try to understand the mindset. It's hard enough to win anyway. And now you're thinking, aren't they paying attention to our money? I mean, aren't they thinking about this? But, it's just the way of the athlete today is just, there's more than just the game and getting to practice and doing what you have to do. There's a lot more to brand and contract and things that get in these kids' minds today. But I mean, that play was just, it'll go down in history. No one will forget it, probably. And Stevenson adding to the drama, other than the great throw by Daniels and keeping the play alive for 13. What was Chicago doing defensively, not rushing for, having a spy on a 65-yard run? I mean, I heard a lot of people talking about Johnson, the linebacker, was sitting in the back and spying the play. Like, where's he going to go? What's he going to do? There's nothing to spy. Try to get him down. Don't let him make the throw. So it's just, it was just an amazing play, but exciting, and that's what we play for. Either side, you got to look at that. I remember watching last game of the day. Every game's over. Oh, this game's over too. And sure enough, I'm saying to myself, ironically, do you know Eberflus is going to get bailed out for giving the ball to the offensive lineman on the goal line when he fumbles in the previous series? And I'm saying, these coaches, what are they thinking about? I'm texting with guys back and forth. I said, I just hate it when they get bailed out. And then sure enough, that play happens and gives Washington one of the most miraculous wins in the history of the franchise.
Basic rule of thumb, and it applies to gamblers too. Don't get cute. Yeah. And you see coaches do this all the time. All of a sudden the guy thinks he's got Fridge Perry coming in there, and it turns into just a bozoic play. And as you said, looks like he got off the hook. The game appeared to be in the bag, and then that happens. There was some criticism too of him allowing that easy out pattern where there's nobody within 20 yards of the guy with 6 seconds to go, and they let him pick up another 15 yards so they could even be in a position to have Jaden Daniels reach the end zone. So that was wild too. All right.
Sorry, one more tidbit on this is that I listened to a couple of guys, and we know this as gamblers. One of the guys in Vegas, I follow, Chad Moment, very good, highly educated, does a thing, sharp or square play with Colin Cowherd. I see him actually say on the air, as they're recapping the day, look at this, the Bears just went in, we got to win. 4-0 today to his guy on the side. Yeah. And the kid goes, no, you didn't say it. He goes, come on, there's 19 seconds left. What could happen? Yeah. And he says, I know I should have never said it. And then the reaction, there's probably a clip you can go to and see it. When that ball hits and they lose, his face was just priceless. Like he completely went white. And I think, like we say, we never know when it's going to end. And Washington was my only winner last week. So yeah, I got the miracle in my favor. So
Yeah, they were carrying a Bears fan out of the casinos in body bags. All right, let's get a couple of plays in here, and we're also going to be joined by Troy West on the show in just a couple of minutes. But you're looking at tonight's game, and you're looking at the strangeness of this line, which
Yes.
also struck me as not being odds, but very odd that the Jets opened up, I believe, as a 2-point favorite. I see it now at 1.5. But it's held steady in spite of the fact you're looking at a 2-6 Jet team in total disarray with Ulbrich as their coach, who appears to be lost. He made people start screaming that they wanted Rich Kotite to come back, and a 6-2 Houston team that compromised with their wide receivers being injured, and now Diggs out for the season. But it does seem strange to see the Jets favored in this spot.
Yep, Diggs is a loss. Again, I look at we go 6-2, 2-6. But there's a stat here that favors the Jets that I think maybe we should share with the audience. So D'Amico Ryans' staff is playing their first game on a short week as a staff. And they say when you have 7 or 8 days to prepare or a week or a bye week, it's a lot easier than preparing in just 3 days. You play a tough game, division game, which is always a rivalry game. It's Colts on Sunday. Now you're traveling, going over a time zone a little north to New Jersey to play the Jets. And you only have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to prepare. So now you start thinking, wow, this happens. Well, it's like a 30% win rate on a team playing their first game as a staff on a short week. That favors the Jets, and I think it's a bigger stat than people realize, the short preparing for as a coaching staff for a short week. So I go with that, and I'm watching the game. The Jets let one get away. They've let a lot get away this year. You know, their defense is going to be tested. They're going to be tried. Everything's Aaron Rodgers this, Aaron Rodgers that. He's saying we need 30 points a game. Does that motivate the Jets defense in a spot, the Diggs injury? I don't understand the line. Loved Houston thinking about it. When I start hearing stats, I dig into these games. Sometimes I change. I like the Jets in this spot.
Everybody seems to be on the same page as you. I've talked to several people today, and they all like the New York Jets. All right, you're also looking at the Chargers and the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, the old Jameis Winston factor. Yeah, he played great. Yes, he says the right things. Yeah, the Browns are getting a couple linemen back, but should this line really be 1.5, 2? I'm not sure. I kind of like what the Chargers are doing with Harbaugh. They were establishing a run. You're betting the better quarterback in this spot. I'm almost even considering even going into the beginning of the year that you might even see the better defense being played now by the Chargers. They're on the way up. I think if Hamilton catches the ball on that interception late in the game that should have easily put the game away for Baltimore, do we see 3, 3.5, 4 in this game? I think we're getting a nice line with the Chargers, and I'm going with them in this spot.
All right, so we have the Jets tonight laying 1.5. The Chargers laying 1.5, and you're on the same bandwagon as Scotty M. You like Philadelphia?
I am. I thought they were very impressive, and it's gearing toward their running back. Being I know a lot about him, being a diehard Giant fan, and trying to be objective when I look at these things from a betting standpoint. But yeah, they're playing right now really good football. They got Smith and Brown back. They go in to play a tough game in Cincinnati. They're tied game, and they seem to pull away. Dominated the Giants. I think Jacksonville's more along those Giant teams that you're seeing right now. I thought they were really porous against the Bears out in in England. They've had the 2 weeks. They kept the game close last week. I know Love didn't finish the game. I just see problems in Jacksonville. They lost Kirk now. Another couple of wide receivers might not play. I like that the Phillies getting healthy. I love the 2 interior linemen of Philly that are really starting to assert themselves, in the run game. I think this is a game that Philly really puts a hammer down. And I think even as Scotty pulled it below the 7.5 number, I think when games go like that over that 2.5, 3.5 line, the 6.5, 7.5 line, somebody knows something to take those games over 3 and 7. I'm going to ride along with them, and I think I like the Eagles in the spot.
All right, and willing to lay the full 7.5 that's on the board right now. Mike, how can people find the selections that you have for your clients?
We're giving out selections now on the Big Gunner podcast on Spotify. More New York Giants information, everything Giants, but we are gambling a little bit there. And then picksforprofits.com, PIX4profits.com.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Good luck with all your plays, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for being with us. Yeah, Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we go all the way out to the city of Seattle. and one of our all-time favorites here. He's been consistently winning on every platform that we featured him on. We have another show on No Filter called Bury Your Bookie. Wins every week on that. Here on License to Steal, wins every week on here. So we welcome to the show from Seattle, Washington, the great Troy West. How are you, Troy?
Doing good. Gosh, congratulations to Dylan and that win last night
Wow.
with the Dodgers. I'll tell you, Defo, I texted you during the game. I had a little money on the Yankees, and I have never seen a debacle like that in the fifth inning. And I'll be honest, I knew even when they went up 6-5, I was like, they're still going to lose this game. I've never seen a team blow a 5-0 lead like that in my life. That was truly something for the record books.
And the way that they were dominating, it was surprising. It was
Mhm.
actually only 5-0, and I started feeling a little bit, as they say when they snap on the rubber glove at a doctor's office, and the doctor looks at you and says, "Oh, you may feel a little bit of discomfort." It's like you're going to shove that up my ass, and you're talking about a little bit of discomfort. You got to be kidding me! But I started to get a little disturbed by the idea that they were leaving so much out there. There was a lot of meat left on the bone. They had many base runners, and they weren't able to bring them home. And you thought, well, is 5 really going to hold up? Because the way the Dodgers were going, a couple of swings, you didn't expect them to cave like they did. In fact, I think shoeless Joe Jackson probably was looking down on his game and thinking, and they called me into an investigation. You couldn't make it look any worse if you were fixing the game than the Yankees did in that fifth inning. But they ended up on a losing end, and a lot of Yankee money now went straight into the Bunsen burner. All right. You were looking at both college and pro football this week with us, Troy West. So let's get it cranking here because you had some plays that you're very positive about. And of course, last week, always a measure of distinction when you hit a score right on the head. And you did that in the USC game last week. So that was great. Congratulations on that. But I know you're looking at the. Have you ever been to the largest outdoor cocktail party, the
I
Georgia
have
Florida
not.
game?
That's on the bucket list. That is definitely on the bucket list. I've heard people go to that game and it's a fantastic time. And yeah, I just think you got a Billy Napier team that's playing better football. I get it. You know, he might. I don't know if he's off the hot seat yet or not. They're playing better ball, but they're going into Georgia. You know, Georgia's just playing better football right now. I still think this Georgia team's the best team in the country. I still think they win the national championship. They're laying 16 out. It's a lot of points. I get it, but I think Georgia just steamboats them. I think it's a 42-17 type of football game. I'll take the Bulldogs in this spot minus 16.5.
All right, yeah. I always pictured a lot of stills out there in the parking lot, but it isn't that way. Apparently, it's at a much higher level. It's very sophisticated by comparison to my image of what goes on in Jacksonville, Florida, when Georgia and the University of Florida, them Gators, get together. I'm thinking deep south on that. And a lot of moonshine flowing around in the pregame parties. All right, so you're willing to lay 16 and a hook with Georgia, who certainly now has distinguished itself once again as possibly the team to beat, in spite of Oregon being ranked number one in the country. You're doing a little reversal for what would be the opinion of many on the show here, that Indiana was a team to just ride. I noticed that Scotty M got off Indiana as one of his selections. He's been riding them like a magic carpet all season long, much like our buddy AJ, who is, of course, the man when it comes to Bleacher Brothers Network. He's been riding Army, so much so that I had to bet him this week that if they cover the spread, I have to enlist. That's how hot they've been. But you're going against the grain here with a Michigan State team that's getting a bunch of points, and that was a win for the professor last week when they went against Michigan and got 5.5.
Yeah, I'm just not a believer in this Indiana team yet. I get the record. I totally get it. But if you look at the body of work, it's still not there. And it may not be there until the Big Ten championship and until the playoffs. I still think they likely win the game. But if you're going to give me Sparty plus 7.5, plus 8 at home in a place that's going to be absolutely rocking, I'm going to take it. Jonathan Smith, this is a West Coast guy. It's a guy that was at Boise State for a long time, was at Oregon State, did a fantastic job. He's done an incredible job at Michigan State. This Michigan State team's not very talented. I get it, but they play good defense. They can run the ball. They don't turn the ball over a lot. I love the points here. I think it's a close football game. 24-21. I think Indiana probably sneaks it out, but give me Michigan State. I'll take 7 and a hook all day long in a Big Ten matchup that's going to have a lot of implication. Michigan State's not a bad football team. Give me 7 and a hook in this one.
All right, taking Michigan State plus 7.5 against Indiana, which has been really kind of a Cinderella story here, and they've been putting a lot of points on the board as well. And we're going to look at the NFL, and this is one of those games where, for some reason, you can't imagine that this team is that bad. But the Cincinnati Bengals are laying a touchdown plus 7 and a hook against the Raiders, a team, Troy, that I don't feel you have a heavy dose of respect for right now.
No, I just, I get it. You don't want to fall into the quotes. I get it. But Joe Burrow said this is do or die. This is do or die for the Bengals. They're starting to play a little bit better football. The defense has stepped it up over the last couple of weeks. This number is not big enough. Cincinnati's the better team. The Raiders have been a disaster. I think Antonio Pierce sees the writing on the wall. This is going to be it for him. They don't have a quarterback. They went with O'Connell. Now they're back to Minshew. They've lost the receiving core. The defense is a disaster. I like the Bengals in a big way. This is a get right game for the Bengals. This is their kind of game to kind of show, okay, you know what? We're going to make a push for this wild card. Give me the Bengals in a really big way. 35-13. That number is not near big enough. I love the Bengals on Sunday.
AJ says if I do enlist, he's going to have to start a sequel to Saving Private Ryan. I'll be Saving Private Defo if that happens. All right, we do have a game tonight. So your official plays are Georgia minus 16.5. This is Troy West, ladies and gentlemen, does a great job for us. Michigan State plus 7.5, and the Bengals laying 7 and a hook in a do or die situation against the Las Vegas Raiders. Any thoughts about this somewhat mysterious line? We've been talking about this a lot. It seems like how could the Jets be favored in this spot when they're a team that appears to be in total turmoil? They've done everything they possibly can to appease Aaron Rodgers and give him whatever it is that he wants. I think they have enlisted a private chef. He's got a chauffeur. He's got his own butler. Whatever he needs, they bring to him. Peyote buttons. They accommodate his every whim. They bring in Devontae Adams. We saw Adams play last week. And yet, in spite of the fact that Garrett Wilson looked good and they have Hall in the backfield with Rodgers, what they don't have is protection up front. And this guy's under massive pressure. What is your thought about possibly laying 1.5, which there seems to be? Have you found this in your research here about this game, that there's almost universal unison? Talk about bringing people together. Everybody's on the Jets in this game, which really strikes me as being suspect. But what do you think? Jets tonight?
Yeah, I'm guilty. I just left the MGM and my money went on the New York Jets. And I'll be honest, after listening to your show, I'm a little bit nervous that many people would be on it. I think it was
everybody's on this, right?
Everybody. When you first saw it, you're like, oh shit, the public's going to be all over the Texans. But the Texans, we obviously know they're banged up. Short week. They're on the road. The Texans have played a lot of close football games this year. They beat the Colts by 2. They beat the Jaguars by 4, the Bills by 3, the Colts by 3. A lot of close games. I don't know if this Texans team's for real. They're on the road. I get it. The Jets are 2-6. I'm guilty of betting them last week. They let me down. They've got all the talent in the world. Maybe this is that Thursday night game where everything kind of comes together for the Jets and they rally up a win at home against the Texans. I think it is. It's enough information for me to lay my hard-earned money on it. Give me the Jets on the money line or minus the 1.5. I think the Jets do win this game tonight. 24-17. I'll take the Jets.
I would imagine a lot of people that will have money on this game will be gargling with Xanax when Greg the Leg Zerline comes out there, possibly with the spread to be covered and be determined with a late field goal try. I mean, he's been abysmal, and that does make the Jets' record somewhat deceptive because if he makes a couple of kicks, you could say this perhaps about a lot of teams in the NFL where all the games seem to be close, but he's 2 kicks away from them being at least a more respectable 4-4. And in that spot, you probably would have thought that the 1.5 points was not as generous of an allotment as it appears to be with them coming in at 2-6. All right, how do people get your information? Because you have all kinds of deals out there, Troy West, and you're as honest as they come. I can vouch for that. You send me the tickets that you put out for your clients. Some of these tickets you can get for like $7 a week, all of this information, and you're all over it, including a lot of very, very successful NBA props that you're giving out.
Yeah, the props have been really hot right now. 11-1 to start the NBA season. We
Is that
swept
right?
again.
Wow.
11-1 to start the prop season. No joke. Like yesterday, I'll be honest, we went 1-2, but the props went 4-0. And a lot of times they're not even close. I mean,
You had
we had
Jones cover in the first quarter, right? His
yeah,
point
Carl
guard.
Anthony Towns. Yesterday we had over 24.5 points. He went up for 44.
Wow.
So our prop division knows what they're doing. It's a lot of fun to see. Come take a look. It's troywins.com. 7 days, $7. That gets you everything. That gets you the UFC. That gives you props, prize picks, golf bets, college football, college basketball, you name it. We cover it all. It's not just me. It's a group of guys really putting our heads together to give out good quality information with a lot of integrity behind it. So the Instagram is It's Troy West. A lot of free picks, a lot of fun stuff going on. We'd love for you to come take a look.
I'm telling you, people, it's a great piece of information, a guide, whatever. And if you want to just make the play straight up, you're going to end up making money. So, Troy West, you've been dynamite all season long. Thanks so much for joining us here on License to Steal.
Thank you, Defo. Appreciate it.
All right, Troy West, ladies and gentlemen. So Troy has Georgia, world's largest cocktail party. I'm wondering if, Toby, have you attended this thing? I mean, you're at the point in life where this would be something I would imagine. Are you planning on being there? I mean, Yankee Stadium was rowdy with those two guys stealing Mookie Betts' glove or trying to tear his arm off. But have you ever been to the world's largest cocktail party?
No, this is the first I'm hearing of it.
Oh, you're not even aware of it. Wow. I mean, it's the University of
No,
Florida.
I just turned 21 this June, so.
Well, that shouldn't have prohibited you from going to this game and getting blasted, I don't think. But no, it's nice to know we have a responsible young adult here. Yeah, I've never been. I mean, it was always talked about, and many times when Florida's program was doing a little bit better, these games were with the so-called national championship implications. Supposedly, though, the crowd there is not as ruthless as you would think, and as blasted as you would imagine after the tailgating that takes place before the ball game. But I'm like Troy. I'm going to put that on the bucket list. Maybe we can get AJ to take the whole staff up there next year. A little too late to make the arrangements this time. All right, matters of the occult. Are you going to? I like the fact that you're willing to factor those in to your equations in the future, and did give some credibility to my nonsensical thing about Fernando Valenzuela, but turned out you would have to look to other factors to explain an inning like the Yankees had in the top of the fifth inning yesterday in the World Series deciding game. A pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for putting it together. Always great being here. I'm going to be on with AJ on Saturday. He does the horse racing show, and so the Breeders' Cup is on tap. I'm going to get myself a racing form and give out some losing picks on AJ's show on Saturday. So that'll be at 10 o'clock. And we'll have another edition of Conversations for you coming up on Tuesday at 4. Thanks, Toby. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks to all of our handicappers for joining us. Till next time, I'm Jeff DeForest, hoping that we've opened the door for you to have a license to steal.